I made a big mistake on a night out and my kids turned their backs on me. I also lost my loving husband. I think my mistake has caused my whole family to turn against me, including my kids. I have been crying for the past week and I really need to vent. My name is Esther and I am 35 years old. I work as a florist and I own my shop. I had been living my quiet life with my family before I got married. My husband's name is Andre, is a lawyer and he is 40 years old. Andre was the perfect husband and I am happy I got to marry him. Andre and I first met in high school. I was the girl that everybody was friends with and Andre was the calm, reserved gentleman. We eventually became friends. It was that day my period came in and I didn't know what to do. Everyone kind of ignored me and some were laughing at me. It was Andre that took me to the school clinic. From then on, we became very good friends. Our friendship grew over the years, with me being the social butterfly and Andre being the one who was quiet and reserved. I could tell that my friend loved me because he always took everything about me seriously. He always made sure that I was well taken care of. People kept telling me that Andre liked me, but I didn't believe them until he asked me to the prom. After high school, we went to different colleges, but we were still very much in touch with each other during the last week of college. I fell pregnant, and when I told Andre about it, he was over the moon. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared that my parents were going to disown me, and to be honest, they were very angry. But when I told them Andre had plans to marry me, their anger subsided. They called Andre and spoke to him, but by then, Andre didn't need convincing because he already planned to marry me. I was happy. I had to make it clear to Andre that I didn't want to trap him with the pregnancy. I told him that if he wasn't ready, we should wait for the time being. He said he was happy that we were starting a family and that he was ready. I finished school and we started planning the wedding. It was beautiful and also very stressful, but Andre was there for me to rely on. He was very supportive. Andre's mother was the best. She was also as sweet as her son. She welcomed me like a daughter, which I was glad about because for the wedding, everyone was helping out. After the wedding, I moved into Andre's home and we started preparing for our baby's arrival. We were young, but Andre made sure to always put me at ease. It wasn't easy for us. Andre was the only source of income, so at some point we were struggling, but we were surviving. After our baby boy came, we were so happy. After the baby's arrival, I was able to start something new and I opened a florist shop. I've always loved flowers and it had always been my dream to own my own shop. I started the shop with the help of Andre and the shop was a great success. Andre was very supportive as always and I officially began my life as a florist. I made little money and tried to give some to Andre, but he refused and told me it was important to stand on my own 2 feet first. After a few years, Andre got a better job and everything started moving well. We moved from a small bedroom apartment to a bigger one as our family grew. After my first child, we had 2 more, and then we were done. Pregnancy wasn't easy, but Andre made sure it was as stress-free as possible. We were living comfortably, and our children were grown. Sometimes I think how quickly time has gone. It was as if I blinked and my oldest child is already 15. Having 3 children wasn't easy, but I had a supportive husband, so I didn't have to worry. There were days where I was so busy. I barely had time for the children at work, but Andrew was always there to help out during the holidays. When the kids were at home, they usually spent it with my parents or Andre's mother, which gave Andre and me some time to ourselves. We could take time out of work and spend quality time together. After our little get-togethers without the kids, I always felt refreshed and ready to go back to work. Everything seemed to be going well until I met someone from my past. Whenever I look back, I always feel like our problems started from that particular meeting. I ran into my high school friend Annabelle one day, and everything changed. Annabelle and I go way back, but we lost touch after high school. I was really happy to see her again. We were partners in crime back then, and our friendship was great. We had a great catch-up, and it was nice to meet her family. I had to tell her that I married early, and whereas Annabelle wasn't yet married after she left the house that day, Alfred called me to the side and told me that he didn't really like the vibe he got from Annabelle. I found his assumptions weird, so I told him that he should forget about it and that it wasn't anything serious. I explained that Annabelle could come off as a demanding person on the first day, but if you got to know her, you'd see that she was a very sweet person. I'd say she was a very sweet person. I had absolutely no idea. I was defending the wrong person at that time. It just felt weird to me that my husband didn't get along with my friend because Annabelle and I were like two peas in a pod back in high school. She definitely brought that back with her. Annabelle would come to the shop, and we usually spend our time talking and laughing. She was the type of person that there was never a dull moment. We would go out for drinks at times, and sometimes Annabelle invited me as her plus one on different occasions. My husband and I started having issues immediately. Annabelle came back into my life because I would forget time and stay with her talking and socializing. I started to go home late and I was lacking behind in terms of taking care of my home. My husband noticed and he pointed it out to me. He told me I needed to change and stop seeing Annabelle. I agreed and started spending less time with her because I didn't want to cause a rift between my husband and me. My husband noticed I'd stopped speaking to Annabelle and was spending more time on my own. Annabelle also noticed the change and I had to explain to her that my husband didn't want us to spend that much time together. I used to spend a lot of time with Annabelle when I was at school, but now I have a family and I need to focus my attention on them. She was really understanding and we gave each other space. I was really happy that she was understanding because some people would have taken it the wrong way, but I knew deep down that something wasn't right with me after the whole Annabelle drama. I was happy in my home and I was happy. But I was just a housewife with no social life. I was just there, going through the motions. Ever since Annabelle came back into my life, though, I started to feel the way I used to before I met my husband Andre. I knew that I couldn't be seen with Annabelle, so I started spending secret time alone whenever I was free from work. I made sure to go to a quiet place and just chill. At the end of the day, it's not easy to be taking care of the family and also working. I needed some time to myself because my family can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. My children were my world, but the house was a bit of a mess sometimes. I told Andre that I needed to go and see my mother, so I left my family for about 2 weeks. They kept calling and asking when I was coming back, but I kept saying as soon at my parents' place. I was able to unwind and just be free there. I decided to visit the local bar, and there I met a few people who were in the community. They were friendly and helpful, but whenever the guys saw the wedding band on my fingers, they tended to just leave and ignore me. It was a little bit weird to be treated that way, and it didn't really rub me the right way. After my little getaway, I got back home and went back to my business, which I had someone in charge of. That is why it was easy for me to just travel when I returned from my trip. Andre had to go for a 3-day work trip. I used the opportunity of a day's work trip to call Annabelle, who came over to the house. I think that was a mistake, because my children weren't happy to see her. They kept telling me she was not a good person and that they remembered how Andre and I had issues because of her. But I ignored them because I didn't see anything wrong with her. If I was the black sheep who was doing what their father said I shouldn't do, I thought the kids would take my word for it and stay out of everything. But as soon as Andre got back, they told him the truth, which really surprised me because I hadn't prepared for that and I didn't have any excuse ready. Andre was very upset with me when he got back, and it was all very visible. He didn't speak to the kids, but he pulled me to one side and told me he was disappointed in me. I felt really bad, even though I tried to give excuses for my actions. He made it clear that he wouldn't tolerate such behavior in his house and that I should never make the same mistake. He felt like I was proving him wrong. Right, each time by going behind his back to do things I knew would upset him. From Andre's reaction, I learned my lesson and didn't make the same mistake again for a while. I focused more on my marriage and kids. We were back to normal, eating breakfast without any tension or drama. Sometimes we went out for dinner. A few weeks later, Andre surprised us with a vacation since it was summer break. We started planning for the trip that was going to make us bond more. I was happy, and the trip did what it was supposed to do. A few weeks after I returned from the Annabelle came over to my shop and asked for help with money. I had no choice but to help her. It went on for a while, and eventually she returned the money, with interest. I was happy about it. On that day, she told me that she wanted to treat me to an outing that was happening. It was her way of saying thank you for the help. I didn't want to do anything that could affect my marriage, especially as my husband had told me not to have anything to do with Annabelle. I decided to ask my husband what his deal with Annabelle was. I also wanted to know why he was so angry with her. I didn't want to keep accepting Annabelle's invitations without telling my husband. When I got home, I asked him. He said he had nothing to do with Annabelle and didn't want to know anything about her. He just didn't like the way she made me behave when I was around her. I did things I never did before and made decisions without thinking twice. After hearing his reasons, I refused to tell him about my recent encounter with Annabelle because that could upset him the most. So I made plans to just go on the outing with Annabelle. I got to the gathering that Annabelle had invited me to. It wasn't what I was expecting. It was very much like a party for single ladies because the things that were going on weren't things that a married woman should do. It wasn't a place for me, but I just said I should focus on the reason I was there and enjoy myself. A few minutes after I got to the party, I was already enjoying myself. I was enjoying myself, and so was Annabelle. At some point, though, I lost sight of her. She'd disappeared from me. I met a lot of women who I later found out were married. I was so confused. Why were they living that kind of life by dancing with guys? They told me that I should just forget that I was married for a second and I was trying to live my life as normally as possible, but I wasn't buying it at first. After getting a few drinks, though, I started to let loose a little, and that's when I started to have problems. I wasn't myself again and I started to dance with various men and even make out with them. I felt very different at that point. The next day, I woke up in a bedroom with a naked man on top of me. At first, I didn't really feel anything because I was numb. It was only later that I realized I'd slept with him and that I had a family, a husband, and I just had an affair with him. I met someone at a party and started thinking about how I got there and so on. I realized that my friend had led me astray. I picked up my belongings and tried to call Annabelle, but she didn't answer. I was so confused I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go to my shop. I thought about just staying there and thinking, but I decided against it after seeing a lot of messages and missed calls from my husband and children. I went home and didn't see my husband there. My children were at school. I tried to change and try my best to come up with a good lie. I could get out of the trouble I'd put myself in, but I couldn't think of anything. When my husband got back, he asked me different kinds of questions about how I should have done the needful and called if I was going to stay out late. He also asked me where I'd gone. I couldn't lie to him because I thought he might already know, so I was scared of being caught in a lie again when I told him about Annabelle and how I helped her. He got really angry and started shouting at me. He said he'd warned me, but I didn't listen and I'd cheated on him. Annabelle had a big influence on him. He asked me if I thought he should pity me after I messed up and made a fool of his kindness. I tried to tell him that Annabelle was the one who destroyed our marriage, but he called me a gaslighter and told me he didn't care. According to him, I made the decision and I had no right to stand in front of him and act like I was doing him a favor. I felt like I was doing him a favor by telling him the truth. I started to beg him to forgive me, but he threw me out of the house. I wanted to explain everything to him and tell him that I didn't mean to do what I did, but he didn't give me the chance. I tried calling Annabelle, but it wasn't going through. I decided that it was best if I just went to her house so that I could stay with her for some time before I reconciled with my husband and got back to my family. I thought it would be best to go to her house so that I could stay with her for a while before I reconcile with my husband and get back to my family. I was wrong, though, and went to Annabelle's house. She told me that she couldn't accommodate me because she was having guests over. I was disappointed. I helped this person a few weeks ago, but now she's refusing to help me just for a little while. I also had to ask her about what happened at the party that made her leave me. She kept giving me excuses, which I didn't really blame her for. I was warned about her, after all. I just had to learn my lesson. I learned my lesson the hard way. I take some blame for this because I wanted to go to the party and have fun for a while. That led me to disobey my husband, Andre. He was easygoing and had no problems. He just had one rule: be a good and loving wife. I broke that trust. He threw me out of the house. I haven't seen my children, so I told myself that regardless of the problems I had with Andre, we could work it out and we shouldn't bring the children into it. When I got home, Andre and the children were there. I tried to speak to my children, but they ignored me. They were so angry. The kids were so angry at me for cheating on their dad and disobeying their mom. It was all just too much to take in. I felt like I was losing my kids. I begged my husband to listen to me and let me explain everything. But he wouldn't listen. My child said I shouldn't have cheated on their father. Other mothers get the support of their children, but I got the opposite. My children were not my own. How did I make such a terrible mistake of disobeying my husband, who was everything and more? I cheated on him. I ended up destroying the family that I had worked so hard to build. I was having trouble finding a place to stay, so I started staying in my shop because it was the only thing I owned that was mine. I had to call my parents and also speak to Andre's mother to try to convince Andre to forgive me. I wanted to be a family once again, but it wasn't easy. I was insulted for being loose and cheating, disobeying, and so on. My parents were so angry that they decided to take sides. It wasn't my side, though. After a few weeks, my parents came around and decided that they were going to go with me. We met up with Andre to sort things out, but it all went wrong. When we got there, I tried to speak to my children, but they ignored me. Andre told my parents that he was done with the marriage and gave me the divorce papers. It all played out like a movie to me. I was so careless. My parents tried to reason with Andre, but he told them it was too late for us. Nobody blamed Andre because he had given me so many chances, and I messed it up. I thought I had a chance to fight for us, but there was nothing left. I lost my children and my husband. In my youth, I was married to a wonderful man who cared about me and loved me. After that day, my parents advised me to sign the divorce papers and do my best to make amends with my children. They didn't see the possibility of my marriage working out again, so it dawned on me that it was really over. We went through the divorce and were given joint custody of our children. It was a really tough time for me because I had wanted to have a family I could grow old with, which was no longer an option. A few weeks after the divorce, I found out that Andre had changed the password to the bank card he had given me. I was short of cash again. My business wasn't moving like before and things were just stagnant. I managed to find a place to stay after a while, but it wasn't as comfortable as I wanted. My children behaved like I did, not existing whenever they came over. I'm currently working towards restoring our relationship. It's been a tough road to recovery. It's been months since the divorce and I've been trying to cope. I made a mistake that cost me a lot. The people I called my friends were enemies. Annabelle and I are in a separate space. I wish I had never met her. She played a part in everything after the divorce. I called Annabelle when I met up with her and she blamed me for my own misfortune. It was as if it was my own karma for trusting someone blindly. I didn't blame her though. I just wanted to get some closure. I wanted to ask her why she did what she did. I had to ask why she took me to the party and did what she did. But she said it was just for fun and I took it. She said I was the one who made the decision to cheat on my husband, that she had no ulterior motives. I left there angry and feeling defeated. I'm trying to reconnect with my children now, but it's not easy. It's like they've closed me off and don't want anything to do with me. Andre has moved on, and I still hurt that I lost my loving husband and family all of a sudden.